Hello, good morning, and welcome to Thoughts and Updates. I am in the inside as the weather has broken, as they may sing in various musicals, and outside it is not very pleasant. It's kind of funny that in the week that the British government have decided, or the Welsh government, or both of them have decided to open garden centres, that the heavens have opened and it's not very pleasant. However, are we locked in, are we locked out, or do we just have loaded messages, as we are at the point now of there being different advice being given within the United Kingdom depending upon which part you're in. So England and Wales are looking at very different ways of coming out of lockdown to Scotland. Scotland are quite clear that right now, stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives, is the message that is clear, unequivocal, and it's working for businesses within England and Wales. There seems to be a desire to get back working, to get back making money, and it's very similar to what's happening in the States. And I do think very, very strongly that with the risk of coronavirus that's out there at the moment, the virulent nature of the disease, that any lessening of lockdown measures is going to increase the likelihood that we are going to see more deaths. The United Kingdom is the second highest in the world after America in terms of deaths. And given the size of America and the size of the United Kingdom, of course, we're never going to match the death toll in America. But every death is somebody's brother, sister, mother, aunt. And if there's something that can be done to stop the virus from getting to them, surely it's something we should be contemplating. And it's the 75th anniversary of victory in Europe this last week. Not something that I was ever going to go and celebrate. It tends to be celebrated, I feel, by people who've never been at war. Now, I've never been at war, I've been in war. Countries that have been ravaged by war, I've spoken to people who have seen and who have lived through wars. But for me, I just think that the celebration of any end of any conflict should be muted, should be something that does not feel triumphant, that is simply about how we are able to get up in the morning, get on with our day, and feel as though we have got past something. Remember those people who have sacrificed their lives and who have gone out and seen the most terrible things in order to allow us to have our simple freedoms. The military is a constant in any regime, no matter which colour, no matter which flavour, no matter which political hue. There is a need for an army, a navy, and an air force. And therefore, when they go out in order to protect the borders, they do so because others have told them to so do. And I have a great deal of admiration and respect for those who do. And I also have a number of people who on Facebook and elsewhere have noted that because they have seen conflicts, because they have been in war zones, because they have seen comrades and friends and family fall, that the idea of celebrating any kind of conflict is something that's utter anathema to me. And I feel very strongly that that's something that I should take on board. So, a week also of political campaigning and thinking, and none more so when it comes to the arts. I've written to the Culture Secretary, Fiona Hislop, because the number of deaf artists who have been trained at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, who are now in the acting fraternity, now getting work down south in Leeds, Sheffield, London, Stratford, but they're not getting work up here. There's not a theatre company outside of Solar Bear or the Robert Arts Centre who have put their hand in their pocket in order to employ a deaf artist since their graduation. There have been disabled artists employed by organisations in Scotland. There have been interpreters put on stage to allow access for the deaf community into theatres and to understand what's happening on stage. But my point is exceptionally simple. How ironic is it that the money that's being poured in order to allow the deaf access to theatres comes in the form of hearing people on a stage rather than deaf people performing on that stage? I've also been reviewing this week online something that allows me now to watch an Australian circus group Railed. Review will begin up later on today to watch Sunset Boulevard by Morag Fulton. Fantastic piece. I play a pie and a pint. Also, Hysteria is part of the Scottish Mental Health Arts and Film Festival. So there's going to be more of that over the week because I watch quite a bit on my brand new tablet, which I got, thank you very much, Lorna, for my birthday. It was my birthday during the week, and if I haven't thanked people for sending me birthday wishes, thank you once more. A really eclectic band of people. My life has taken me into very different places throughout the world, and to see so many people send birthday wishes is always very, very humbling and lovely. Also, writing this week, I've been doing some Talking Boys stuff, looking at comebacks, because Mike Tyson was saying in the pads, and amongst other, George Foreman had said, you could really become a contender, Mike. And I've looked at some of the comebacks that have been successful, like Tyson Fury's and George Foreman's, and some that have not quite been as successful, like David Hayes and Ricky Hatton's. Which would Mike Tyson fall into? People want to see Mike Tyson back because he's a ferocious beast of a fighter. But he's 53. I'm not that much older than him. Would I go into a boxing ring after 13, 14 years out? No. I also had unsung hero this week is Edwin Tellez, who's a Nicaraguan fighter. Nicaragua have been much in the boxing news recently because they had the very first post-coronavirus card in Managua, and this is a fighter who flies the flag for Nicaragua, but the symbol of the flag upside down, in his opposition to the President Daniel Ortega. Now, Tellez is a journeyman. He's, I think, won 30 fights or 20 fights out of something like 100. So he's not a guy who's going to be a world title contender, but he's fought a lot in the UK. And we've seen him quite a bit. And he's a decent guy in terms of his fighting ability and his political sensibilities. I also have enjoyed doing the Ringside Report stuff this week, and looked at George Turpin, Liverpudlian boxer who went to the Olympics in 1972, came back with a bronze medal and turned professional and didn't really do much in the pro game. And looking at that code, switching from Olympic and amateur into a professional one, and how it is no guarantee of success. And there are many examples of this over the years. There are more examples now of Olympians like Amir Khan, Anthony Joshua, James DeGale, who have Luke Campbell, who have gone on to world titles or to fight for world titles. But there are also examples of those who've come out and haven't really hit the heights. In the 72 Olympics, also a guy called Fred Evans, who retired after the Olympics, although he went on to help his father in the boxing gym. Evans retired after winning a bronze at the 72 Olympics. The other British fighter at the time who went in to the Olympics was a guy called Alan Minter, who was super middleweight champion of the world. So what we also have this week is that I was looking at which round was this that I put up, sent across to Brad last week, and I missed the fact that he'd put it up. So I have stuck it in my social media, which is a new kind of concept for Across the Road in America, which I'll try and do monthly, is to look at a fight and to describe the action of the 3 minutes of madness and see if you can guess which fight it relates to. Now, the first one is very, very easy. It's become a fight which is very, very... it's in folklore, very well known. So I haven't seen anybody made the guess, but I'm quite sure that everybody knows what fight it is. And also this week, Scottish Football Supporters Association stuff. It's been a big week for writing for me. I have put up, or had put up stuff on East Fife. February 2019, they went across to play Bohemians in Dublin as part of the Anne Brew Cup, and with 7 minutes to go, the whole thing was called off. And many people from Methil and Fife and around the country who had gone out to see their wee team, East Fife, play in a cup tie, which was a quarter-final of the Anne Brew Cup out in Dublin, were thwarted in getting an opportunity to go and see their team play ostensibly in Europe. But there's no compensation scheme, there's no insurance out there in the Scottish Football Supporters Association. At least a couple of people within it have been looking at how we would put something like that together. And I believe that there are things like that when it comes to league reconstruction and it comes to what we're going to do with Scottish football, that we should really be looking at and trying to redraw the balance of how things happen in Scottish football. And my final wee bit of writing is my contentious bit for the week. Now, the big dossier has arrived. Rangers Football Club have announced and provided people with the evidence that they believe points to corruption, bullying and ineptitude. Now, there's no doubt that what they've pointed out is a lot of things that are just inept, that are just bad, that are not good, that need addressed. But they have highlighted it as some kind of massive scandal. And the problem is that anybody who's read the dossier are sitting going, don't see it. I can see the fact that you're absolutely right over the stupidity, the idiocy, the daftness, the way in which some of this has been done. But we don't see the corruption. We don't see the bad behaviour that you're suggesting. And that leads people to be, well, when you hear the phrase, don't shoot the messenger, that's often exactly what happens if the messenger is also the person who has written the message. And here we have something that's a bit of a damp squib. It wasn't a smoking gun. And I've written this week an imaginary tale. For those that remember Pinky and the Brain, is a little skit which sees the head of media communications, Mr. Traynor, and Mr. Robertson, the chairman of Rangers Football Club, recast as Pinky and the Brain, trying to take over the SPFL and just not manage to do with the big dossier. I hope people enjoy it. It's meant to be a bit kind of light-hearted, but there's a serious message in there as well. And the serious message is, you have blown it. There's an extraordinary general meeting on Tuesday. This is not a democracy. The SPFL is not a members' club. It doesn't operate as such. Scottish football is at war. What is going to happen is not similar to when everybody falls out of the golf club or everybody falls out of the bowling club. It's not a democracy. And right now, because of the way in which we have managed to ensure the safety of people in the United Kingdom, it doesn't feel like a democracy in the UK just now. What it does feel like is that we are getting past the peak of a virus that has taken 30-odd thousand lives in the United Kingdom and is ready to take far, far more. But what is interesting is, as he said, Corbyn, when he left, that everybody ridiculed his economic policies and what he suggested we should do until it came to a pandemic. And suddenly everybody, including a Conservative government, are rushing to adopt the policies that he said should be in vogue. I read this week an interview with Gordon Brown in the New Statesman, which I thought was so good, so poignant, so fantastic, which pointed out not just that, but the fact that if we don't change when we come out of this, how we look at how we run our economy, all that is going to happen is we're going to repeat the errors and the mistakes of the last decade. And if we go back to austerity when we come out of this, because we have borrowed and borrowed and borrowed in order to get through it, under a Conservative government, and then I think that we are losing the lessons of the recent history. And when you do that, there's only one thing you're condemned to do next. So, bit of a long thoughts and updates today, bit of a less comfortable day outside, but I will go out and do my exercise later on. So until next week, let us hope that we really start to see the dip in the pandemic and we can see an easing of some of the pressures of lockdown. Till then, bye for now.